When you're ready to pop the question, the last thing you want to do is second-guess the ring. At BlueNile.com, you can design a one-of-a-kind ring with the ease and convenience of shopping online. Choose your diamond and setting. When you find the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code WELCOME to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code WELCOME at BlueNile.com for $50 off your purchase. BlueNile.com, code WELCOME.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the Bundesliga podcast. This is the preview show. I'm Manu and he's Stefan Bienkowski. Stefan, how are you holding in there? How's it going on a Thursday evening for you in the middle of the transfer window?
Yeah, it's going absolutely fine. Fortunately, the transfer window's pretty quiet. The busiest thing that's happened in the world of German football seems to be Kieran Trippier not getting on a plane to Bayern. So it could be a lot busier. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not holding my breath. It could get busy this time next week, but for now, it's the calm. Maybe before the storm, but certainly the calm.
Yeah, I had a meeting today at our work, I should say, Transfermarkt, and we're saying that, it's been so quiet, and I was told by one of our bosses, Stefan, that I should not count my chicken yet because it's not the last week of the transfer window. Just a friendly reminder that the quiet could quickly turn into a storm, which is true.
Absolutely.
I guess. So hang in there. Yeah. So this, as I said, this is the previous show. Stefan, we have to fire quickly through this as we're both pretty busy with stuff. So let's get to it, shall we? This episode of the Gegenpressing podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. It's playoff time and the road to Vegas goes through San Francisco and Baltimore. BetOnline is your number one source for playoff football odds, stats, trends, and lines, with everything from point spreads to hundreds of player performance props. Head to BetOnline today to stay updated on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So you know, it's been a bit of a interesting in-between match day, I shall say, because we had that weird fixture, right? The makeup game, Bayern against Union Berlin, which, of course, you know, the chat went wild over it yesterday. And I thought it was actually quite interesting to mention that the amount of interaction we got from a single game, Stefan, has just been incredible. And I just wanted to point out, if you're not a subscriber yet, you can get in on the action. And you can, you know, chat there and get involved. So if you're not a subscriber yet, check that out. I have to say, I think it was over 100 messages we got for that single game, Stefan, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's good fun. It's also a nice kind of change from, or not a change, actually, it's a nice substitute for Twitter for me. I kind of left Twitter late last year, and I mean, I'm on Threads and I'm on Instagram and stuff, but that kind of constant stream of live messages, the only place I've been able to find something like that is on Substack in that kind of chat function. So that's been really good. So I really enjoy sitting in there the weekends, watching the games, chatting to people, and hopefully they enjoy it too.
Yeah, hopefully. So again, just a little bit of an ad, just to get involved. All right, this match day. No cancellations yet, it looks like, which is nice. So the first game is actually a derby. If you're a Mainz fan, I guess. That's Frankfurt against Mainz. What do you think here, Stefan?
So this is an interesting one. Mainz have built up this really interesting knack for picking up draws on the road this season. I think to date, they've actually drawn 6 of their 9 away games in the Bundesliga. They've drawn all 5 of the last away games. So, I think there's a really good chance that they could cause a bit of an upset here. But in terms of Frankfurt, I think they've looked pretty decent so far. They've got a pretty strong home record. They've only lost one game at home this season, the Bundesliga, shall I say. So I've gone for a very narrow Frankfurt win. I've gone for a 2-1 win for Frankfurt.
Yeah, I've got that too, actually. I got a 2-1 win as well. I thought that they were going to win their game against Darmstadt quite handily. They did not. They gave away that 2-0 lead, right? And it ended up being a 2-2 draw. I guess that is derby football for you. Just like last week, Frankfurt also faced another derby opponent, right? So that's actually factored in here. But I actually think that Frankfurt drew the right lessons from that game. Sasha Kalajdzic, I think, saying after the match that this is something that can simply not happen, that you give away a lead like that, right? And so I think that if Frankfurt drew the right conclusions from the Darmstadt result, because on paper they're the better team, right? They're just simply more talent there. They should beat Mainz. Really contrasting too. Mainz has really struggled after the winter break. They're they're still winless. And Frankfurt have picked up 7 from 9. So pretty good record for Frankfurt after the winter break. All right, up next, Wolfsburg against Köln. Köln getting smashed by Dortmund 4-0. And Wolfsburg, a disappointing 1-1 draw to Heidenheim, which is sort of a little bit what we expected. I think I even had Heidenheim as a win there. I don't think this is going to get much better for Wolfsburg. I just don't see much here, Stefan, and I went for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I was really close to go for a draw as well. I've decided to give Wolfsburg some hope. Just because Cologne, as you said, have been absolutely dreadful this so far. They picked up 2 points in the last 5 games. New manager bounce has not really worked out at all for them, unless you count maybe a 1-1 draw with Heidenheim. And, I've been kind of waiting for Wolfsburg to kind of kick into gear. The 2 draws, which, isn't terrible, but it's 2 games against, Mainz and Heidenheim where you'd think they'd be able to kind of pick up 3 points. Although, of course, those are 2 teams who are doing better recently. But I think the key thing is if you look at their home form, it's very much win or lose for them so far this season. They've only got 1 draw. They've won 4, lost 3. And, I mean, those 2 of those 3, in fact, all 3 have come against Leverkusen, Freiburg, and Bayern Munich. So good teams. And I do think Wolfsburg are better at home this season. So I feel like I've been saying this for 2 or 3 weeks now, but I'm like, this surely has to be the game in which they do kind of put their foot down and kind of really start showing up for things. And I mean, if they can't beat Cologne at home, then I really don't know what Niko Kovac is doing on the sidelines there. So I've given them a very narrow 2-1 win.
Yeah. Okay. So what about Hoffenheim against Heidenheim then, Stefan?
I've actually got the exact same result, 2-1. My first 3 fixtures are actually 2-1. Yeah, I mean, I think Heidenheim have been really decent, obviously, so far this season. But that has almost certainly been at home. We've been saying it all season. 17 of their 22 points have come at home. In contrast, they've only picked up 5 points from 9 games on the road. Now, Hoffenheim are kind of the opposite. They're actually much better on the road, but I do think they've actually put in some decent performances recently. They weren't actually terrible against Bayern. I mean, they lost to Freiburg last weekend, but I think they should be able to get the better of a Heidenheim side that do really struggle on the road. So I don't know why, but I've gone for another 2-1 result here. 2-1's just a classic. It could end in a draw, but I think this team might edge it.
Okay, so I actually went for a 2-1 result too, but for Heidenheim. And here's my thinking. Hoffenheim have picked up just 6 points from the last 9 Bundesliga games. And Heidenheim, in contrast, are unbeaten in their last 5 top-flight outings. And 3 of those games were wins. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Hoffenheim did look okay against Bayern. but a lot of teams have been looking okay against Bayern recently. We get to Bayern in a moment. And I just think, I just get the sense that Heidenheim are sitting on something special and they could just etch this. And it's a derby too, by the way. If you consider Hoffenheim against Heidenheim a derby. And then I guess they're both from Baden-Württemberg and they're from small towns. So I guess that makes that a derby. I think the Bundesliga has this weekend classified as derby weekend. And so here we are. We're calling Hoffenheim against Heidenheim a derby, which it is, I guess. So, yeah, and I think that Heidenheim are just going to get it. So, this next one, Werder Bremen against Freiburg. We got some pushback about our last week's prediction that Bayern Munich would just roll over Werder Bremen and smash them. Fair enough. Bremen proved us all wrong and did beat Bayern 1-0. And I think they did so with a really, really strong game plan. The one problem here, though, Stefan, that I have is that, and I went back and forth with my predictions. I ultimately settled for a 1-1 result, although I do have a feeling that Werder might lose this game. And here's why. It's not because I disrespect Werder Bremen, but what happens usually to teams that beat Bayern Munich?
Yeah, they tend to look completely zapped of energy in the next game, don't they?
Yeah. So a 1-1 draw. If they get a 1-1 draw at home against Freiburg, I think they'll be quite happy. But don't be surprised if the 1-0 win over Bayern Munich quickly evaporates here. What's your thinking?
So I very similarly thought that Bremen could struggle here, as you said, because of that kind of performance they put in against Bayern Munich. But having said that, Freiburg haven't been exactly outstanding on the road, and two teams who have been kind of decent so far. If you look at the kind of points over the last 5 games, Freiburg sit fifth, Bremen sit sixth, and they've only lost one game between them actually. The last 5 match days, so they're both kind of slowly but surely kind of crawling up the league table here. And considering that Bremen are a bit better at home and Freiburg kind of struggle on the road, I've actually gone for a 2-2 draw. After kind of trying to factor all that in.
Yeah. All right. So, up next, Augsburg against Bayern, Stefan. Augsburg is where title dreams go to die. What do you think? Is that what's going to happen here?
No. I've gone for a 2-0 win to Bayern. It could be 4, it could be 5. Maybe Augsburg might cause an upset like Bremen did, and we'll have some Augsburg fans giving us grief on Monday morning, but I don't expect it.
I do. I think that Bayern are going to stumble here.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I sat through 90 minutes of Bayern against Union Berlin, and I think they should have stumbled there too. This team is shockingly bad. They can't really score. The reason why they didn't get scored on by Union Berlin is because the referee oversaw a clear penalty, and because Union Berlin are terrible at scoring goals. But, they should have stumbled there. They should have stumbled there just like they did against Werder Bremen. And it's not exactly getting better. Dayot Upamecano out, Joshua Kimmich out. We might see Eric Dyer in this game starting, which is, wild. And then there's also the factor that Augsburg have registered points in the 3 of the last 4 Bundesliga games at home against Bayern. And they have won 2 of those.
Let's not forget it's a Bavarian derby as well.
Sure. This is derby weekend. I guess the word derby can be used loosely for all sorts of stuff now. Yeah, I just don't know. This Bayern side doesn't convince me at all. And that makes me feel that, just like they did against Bremen, just as they should have against Union Berlin, I think this game has another face palm written all over it. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe after, disrespecting Werder Bremen and now giving credit to Augsburg, I might have jinxed them. We'll see. Up next is my match of the week, and this is Stuttgart against Leipzig. I'm a little worried about Stuttgart, Stefan. 2 games in a row that they have lost now. They clearly missing Sergio Guirassy. I read today that Stuttgart have lost all 4 matches this season that they have played without the 17-goal striker. That's a damning statistic. And I thought that they would be fine without him. Clearly they're not. And they're meeting a Leipzig side that I think showed a really good performance against Leverkusen and were simply outclassed and outplayed and maybe just didn't have the same fitness level all the way to the end, right? So I fear this might be Stuttgart's 3rd defeat in a row. I went for a 3-1 Leipzig win here.
Ready to pop the question? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code WELCOME to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code WELCOME at BlueNile.com for $50 off. BlueNile.com.
Yeah, I've gone for another 2-1 win for Leipzig this time. I completely agree with you. Stuttgart haven't had the best start to the year. Matt wrote quite a lot actually in midweek about the troubles with their fans last weekend and the kind of disruptions to the game there, which Hoeneß was very vocal about afterwards. He didn't blame it on that, but he was very vocal about it. You could see that there's obviously a lot of frustration. I think he said, he went along the lines of saying, the club are in a rut right now, and it's up to him to try and minimize that period of time that it lasts as long as possible. So they know that they're not playing well, and this is what kind of defines how good a manager he is, how good that squad is, if they can kind of bounce back. But I think they come up against a Leipzig side in the worst possible scenario because people will probably look at that league table, see the Leipzig have lost 2 games and think, oh, they must be playing terribly, but they played really well against Frankfurt and they played really well against Leverkusen, and they were probably pulling their hair out wondering why they haven't been able to pick up a single point from that. And they'll probably be going into this game without an ounce of complacency. They'll be absolutely determined to prove their doubters wrong, and I agree with you. I think Stuttgart might be in the end of a real thrashing of sorts. Maybe not in terms of goals, because I would have gone for 2-1, but I think in terms of performance, it's going to be a very difficult afternoon for Stuttgart.
They lost the return 5-1. Remember that game?
Oh, yeah.
And that was a game that Stuttgart dominated at the start, and then Nübel made a mistake, and then Leipzig just completely took them apart. I don't think it's going to be quite as bad this time, but I think Leipzig, it's funny because it's 2 top 4 teams that haven't won in 2 games, right? So one of them is going to be the winner here, and I just feel it's going to be Leipzig. All right, so for my top match, 2 years, Leverkusen against Gladbach. This is also a derby, but it's only a derby for Gladbach fans if they win it. Are they going to win it, Stefan?
Yeah, can we call this the Cologne Suburbs derby?
I mean, if you ever want to step foot in Gladbach again, you could.
the Cologne commuter town derby. Look, although I think this game's going to end with a Leverkusen win, and I've gone for a 2-0 win at that. I do think it'll be really interesting to see how well Gladbach do. They have kind of put on a decent, run of form recently. I know obviously they lost against Augsburg last weekend, but even before that, they were kind of slowly but surely climbing up the league table, putting in some solid performances. I think I mentioned this in the last week's show, but if you kind of look at the last 10 match days in the Bundesliga, they're sitting 8th. They're putting in decent performances, and they might be able to cause some problems for a Leverkusen side that have had to really dig in deep over the last kind of couple of weeks and might be looking a little jaded at points. But yeah, it's a derby. It should be a fun game. I'm looking forward to it. But I have gone for a 2-0 win for Leverkusen.
Yeah, I've gone for something similar. I think there's going to be a bit of drama here because it is a derby, but ultimately I think Leverkusen are going to win it, so I went for a 2-1 win. look, this Leverkusen side has so much quality. I think Grimaldo is fit for this game, right? He's a question mark. Palacios is not. We covered that earlier this week. That should be ultimately fine too, because I think they have enough weapons here and replacements. And I guess it will be interesting to see whether they announce Borja Iglesias before this game or whether he's. I assume, because we're recording this on Thursday, it's not a done deal yet that he's not going to be available for this. So, but yeah, I don't think it should matter. I think that Leverkusen are going to win this game 2-1. All right, Union Berlin, low scoring Union Berlin is going to be without head coach Nenad Bielica. I think, that what happened between Bielica and Leroy Sané, it happens between players all the time, that they go at each other, right? And then one gets sent off. But I think it's inexcusable when it happens to a head coach. That simply cannot happen. To be sent off for that and to be suspended now for 3 games. I think for me, it's close to a fireable offense. Because as a head coach, you're a role model, right? It's just a different role altogether than being a player. If a player loses their heads on the field, still not excusable, but you're not going to fire a player over that. But I think for a head coach, it comes quite close. And we've seen it in German football before, right? That head coaches have gotten fired for similar things. So, yeah, he's going to walk a tightrope here, especially, I think, with Steffen Baumgart available. We need to keep that in mind. To the actual game, I think that Union Berlin are going to win this narrowly in a game against Darmstadt that they have to win. Stefan, this is a must-win game for Union Berlin.
Yeah, and I think they will win it. They've won 2 of their last home games. I didn't watch the Bayern game, so I'm kind of relying on your thoughts on that.
You missed nothing.
Yeah, well, I kind of suspected as much. But they have slowly but surely started creeping back up league table. If you look at even their form before that Bayern game, in terms of points picked up in the last 5 games, I think they're maybe now mid-table in that regard. So they certainly are doing better than a lot of the teams around them. Your Darmstadt, your Cologne, your Mainz's and things like that. And, when you bear in mind that Darmstadt have only picked up 1 win at home this season and only 2 draws as well, they've lost 5 of 8. You really would think that Union Berlin have to win this game, and I think they will. So I've gone for a narrow 2-1 win.
Yeah. All right. That brings us to our last match, Dortmund against Bochum, Stefan.
Yeah, last but not least. Having said that, I think it's been a pretty straightforward result. I know it's a derby. I know Bochum fans love getting stuck into Dortmund, but for all Dortmund's faults, they've somehow managed to squeeze by just about every test so far this year. You could certainly argue that they haven't faced many difficult ones, and maybe Bochum could prove a difficult test. I'd maybe be inclined to give Bochum a chance if this was at their own ground, where they're much better this season, but away from home this season, they've been pretty dreadful. And there's just something about Dortmund right now. I still don't think they're playing particularly well, but they've just got enough firepower to just kind of pull them through games. And I think they'll do the exact same thing in this one. So I've gone for a 2-0 win for Dortmund.
Yeah, I went for something really similar. I went for a 3-1 win for Dortmund. It's a derby, sure. And Bochum do well against Dortmund in Bochum. They usually do not do well in Dortmund. 2 towns are a 20-minute train ride apart from one another. So this is actually a real derby, and it's possibly one of the biggest derbies in German football in the absence of Schalke, right? Which is, of course, their biggest derby in German football is Dortmund against Schalke. But yeah, I think that there's plenty of folklore around this game. I almost made this my match of the week because I do think that this is actually a game with a strong history. I think it is a really wonderful way of rounding up the match day, a Sunday evening fixture between 2 local rivals. Unfortunately, I do think that despite the local rivalry, Dortmund are just simply too good for Bochum, and so yeah, 3-1 win. Anyways, I think you should tune in. It's definitely worth watching this game, without a doubt. Stefan, that wraps this up. As always, this episode of the Gegenpressing Podcast is brought to you by Bet Online in association with Get German Football News, who are always very kind of promoting this podcast, posting our predictions. And yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap up this week?
Just looking forward to a good weekend of football.
Yeah, should be actually a really good weekend of football. It's derby weekend, as promoted by the DFL. At least that's what my email said that I get from them once a week. And so I guess that's how we promote this podcast to, is derby weekend, if we think that anything but Bochum against Dortmund is actually classified as a derby during this week. Tune in, watch it all. Chat will be up too. So again, I want to promote the chat. If you're not a Substack subscriber yet, go check that out. And we'll be back soon with more content. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.
In Sicht.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.